Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, delegates, and distinguished guests. Thank you for attending our side event for the 59th session of the Commission on Social Development. My name is Josephine Tyne, and I am a United Nations representative for Concepts of Truth, Inc. NGO, which provides sexual and mental health counseling, counselor training, reproductive loss recovery, and health education programs and resources, along with an international 24/7 crisis intervention helpline. Now we would like to show you a short video to explain more about what we do.
Conversation. It's how we communicate. It's how we connect with others and learn. Conversation is how we teach, and it's how we help others through their recovery. Conversation helps give voice to the pain, and it's how we carry our mission to the world, save lives, and share the gospel. Concepts of Truth, a nonprofit counseling organization, has spent almost 20 years in conversations with men and women of all ages experiencing reproductive loss and other family traumas. We are in the business of healing and recovery, and we are on the front lines of providing it. In addition, our desire is to educate the whole person to make healthy life choices and empower future generations. Based in Wynne, Arkansas, and with offices in Ohio and New Jersey, Concepts of Truth International has a reach that wraps the globe. Our international helpline, 866-482-LIFE, receives calls from around the world 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But how do people know about us? Conversation. People like you spread the word to other hurting people, who then decide to take a courageous step on their own. Often a simple card with our number is passed along, pointing people to their healing. Our international helpline number for abortion recovery and prevention is resourced for movies like Unplanned, or printed in brochures and business catalogs of our supporters. Whatever the contact, our goal is to continue the conversation with hurting people, save babies, and connect them with a care center nearby to help them on their journey for life, healing, and recovery. Concepts of Truth International also provides care through follow-up and recovery weekends. Participants are able to receive healing provided through group with trained leaders who have been there themselves. And people hurt all over the world. That's one of the reasons Concepts of Truth International maintains an official identity with the United Nations. As an organization in consultative status with the UN, we are able to teach and affect change with leaders of nations around the world. We are able to educate in areas dealing with forced abortions, population control, human trafficking, or simply societal and cultural fractures. The task is huge, but we have been blessed to be positioned in such a way as to do our part. We are sustaining families in mental and sexual health through our curriculum models. Our Concepts of Recovery, The Journey, is currently being utilized in the United States and being translated into additional languages for worldwide use. Our Concepts of Sexual Health, Sex and You curriculum, is designed to educate a rising generation in the area of sexual health and the whole person. This is available in both high school and middle school versions and is currently being used in public and private schools of the U.S. These published resources are available for purchase, along with video teaching lessons. Concepts of Truth International strives to continue the conversation through our services. Our dedicated staff is always available for interviews, questions, updates, and speaking engagements. For more information on how you can be involved or to book a presenter for your organization, check us out at conceptsoftruth.org. There are hurting people all around us. Let's continue the conversation.
Concepts of Truth, Inc. NGO is excited this year to join in our presentation with our friends from South Korea, the Blue Tree Foundation. The Blue Tree Foundation, also known as the Foundation for Preventing Youth Violence, NGO, is the first nonprofit organization established in South Korea to raise awareness about, prevent, and provide treatment for cyber violence. We now have a short video about their work.
푸른나무재단은 한 아이의 희생에서 시작됐습니다. 가족과 친구들의 아낌없는 사랑을 받던 꿈 많은 소년 대현. 대현이는 16살이 되던 1995년 6월 학교 폭력을 견디지 못하고 스스로 목숨을 끊었습니다. 학교 폭력으로 인한 죽음. 하지만 모두 학교 안에 폭력은 없다고 말하며 부정했습니다. 아들을 가슴에 묻은 아버지는 학교 폭력과의 긴 싸움을 시작했습니다. 김대영 군이 세상을 떠나고 아버지 김종기 씨는 청소년 폭력 예방재단을 설립해 학교 폭력이라는 단어조차 부정했던 시절 학교 폭력의 위험성을 사회에 알리기 시작했습니다. 푸른나무재단은 청소년 보호 이슈를 우리나라 최초로 공론화시키며 학교 폭력을 예방하고 치유하기 위해 사회적, 제도적 기반을 마련했습니다. 비영리단체로 꾸준한 활동과 투명성을 인정받아 아산상, 임충상, 막사이사이상 등 여러 상을 수상했으며 UN 특별협의 지위까지 획득했습니다. 푸른나무재단은 이제 아이들이 상처를 이겨내고 자신의 꿈을 펼치도록 청소년의 전인적인 성장을 지원하는 대한민국 대표 NGO로 성장했습니다. 눈물에서 시작한 푸른나무재단은 희망의 싹을 키웁니다. 새싹에서 나무까지 한 아이의 성장을 온전히 함께합니다. 아이가 만나는 첫 번째 공동체, 가족 안에서 행복하도록 가족과 함께하는 인성교육을 실시하고 아이가 친구들과 어울리기 시작하면 사이좋게 지내는 방법을 눈높이에 맞춰 배웁니다. 자아가 발달하고 생각이 깊어지는 나이에는 나의 마음과 상대방의 마음이 더 잘 이어지도록 공감하는 법을 배웁니다. 청소년의 마음을 이해하고 내면에서부터 변화를 일으키는 푸른나무재단의 생애 준비 프로그램은 한 그루의 나무가 숲을 이루듯 한 명의 행복한 청소년이 모여 세상을 변화시킨다는 믿음에서 시작합니다. 그렇다면 청소년이 행복하게 자라기 위해서는 무엇이 필요할까요? 상담 치유, 교육 미래, 장학남, 연구 정책 제안, 비폭력 문화운동, 국제. 푸른나무재단은 5가지 핵심 활동을 통해 청소년이 행복한 세상을 만들어갑니다. 지금 청소년의 푸른 나무가 되어 주세요.
Moving on to our youth presentations, today our accomplished panelists will discuss some of the benefits and dangers of digital technology as they relate to social media, cyber violence, maternal health care, and sexual health education. Our first panelist, Nevaeh Vazquez, will introduce us to the topic of social media, what it is, how it helps to reduce loneliness and build relationships, and how it also poses special harms to its users' mental health and safety. Ms. Vazquez has been homeschooled all her life and is a sophomore in classical conversations. She serves as the secretary in the New Pi Honor Society and practices public speaking in her local church, Junior Toastmasters Club, and in her acting classes. In her spare time, she enjoys reading, horseback riding, and evolving her faith. And she loves learning about other cultures, including the deaf community. Ms. Vazquez has a strong passion for social justice, equality for all, and the well-being of the earth and its inhabitants. This is her first year as a UN Youth Representative for Concepts of Truth, Inc.
Aesop once said, quote, "Every truth has two sides. It is as well to look at both before we commit ourselves to either," end quote. Like many other things in this world, social media also has two sides, a potential for both good and bad. In this speech, I will be discussing some of the benefits of social media, how it reduces social isolation and expands communities, and I will also explore the disadvantages of social media, how it can impair users' mental health and expose them to predators. The term social media is a form of electronic communication where users gather virtually to share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content. As John Stepper, MD, the founder of Working Out Loud, once remarked, such social tools, quote, are not just about giving people a voice, but giving them a way to collaborate, contribute, and connect, end quote, essentially to form communities. Communities are essential to our well-being, end quote. We humans wither outside of community, end quote, said the American author on poverty, Frances Moore Lappé. Sadly, in 2020, more than 1/3 of adults aged 45 and older reported feeling lonely, and nearly 1/4 of adults aged 65 and older were considered to be socially isolated. Loneliness and social isolation threaten public health by posing an increased risk of heart disease, depression, dementia, and even death. Such isolation can be especially damaging for school-aged children, particularly those in childhood and adolescence, where loneliness has been linked with depression and anxiety and can have long-term effects. Social media can reduce the dangers of social isolation by connecting people in virtual communities from all corners of the world to collaborate on issues, socialize, share ideas and thoughts, strengthen relationships between friends and relatives, and thus reduce feelings of isolation, particularly in developing countries and in rural areas. Not surprisingly, social media has grown more and more popular each year, not only in advanced economies, but also in emerging and developing countries. 53% of people across 39 countries use online social networking sites like Facebook or Twitter. 2/3 or more of all adults use social media in the US, Australia, South Korea, Canada, Israel, and Sweden. Even countries with relatively limited internet use have seen their share of social media users skyrocket relative to advanced economies. Yet there is a dark side to the use of social media, as overuse can lead to mental health consequences, ironically, the very problems it can supposedly cure. As more and more youth and adults prioritize internet use over actual relationships, work, or school, mental health officials have begun to consider classifying their actions as an addiction. A 2020 study concludes that there is a causal link between the use of social media for longer than 30 minutes per day and depression and loneliness. Among teens and adolescents, studies have linked its excessive use to anxiety, poor sleep, inattention, hyperactivity, and lower self-esteem. And teenagers who spend more than 3 hours per day on social media are more likely to develop mental health problems, including depression, anxiety, aggression, and antisocial behavior. The average person worldwide spent over 2 hours on social media every day in 2019. These figures were significantly higher for youth. In 2019, in the US, for example, the average 8 to 12-year-old spent 4 hours and 44 minutes looking at screens each day, while teens aged 13 to 18 use entertainment screen media for a shocking average of 7 hours and 22 minutes each day. And these numbers have only increased during the pandemic as people are quarantined in their homes. A survey of 2,000 Americans by one poll found that since the quarantine had started, the average screen time jumped to over 6 hours. These internet addictions threaten the mental health of our youth and the fabric of our families, friendships, and other social relationships. Not only does social media threaten its users with addiction, but the use of social media by sexual predators, combined with the rise in use of digital pornography, poses additional threats, mostly to women and girls. Notably, 1 out of 10 sex offenders use online dating apps to meet other people, and 25% of rapists used online dating sites to find their victims in 2005. A spokesperson for Match Group, which owns the dating apps Match, Tinder, OkCupid, and Plenty of Fish, told a Columbia journalism investigator that, quote, there are definitely registered sex offenders on our free products, end quote. Meanwhile, in 2019, Pornhub, the world's largest pornography website, reported more than 42 billion online visits, an increase of over 23 million visits per day compared with 2018. Pornography degrades women by portraying them as objects for pleasure and sometimes as targets of sexual violence. And individuals who consume pornography are more frequently likely to engage in actual acts of sexual aggression. As virtual pornography proliferates, so does the sex trafficking industry. Around 4.8 million people worldwide have been sexually exploited as part of the $99 billion commercial sex trafficking industry, with 63% of underage victims claiming they had been sold online. Victims of sex trafficking endure not only physical harms, but also mental and emotional trauma, with consequences like PTSD, self-harm, attempted suicide, depression, and anxiety. Such mental anguish can be compounded by abortion, which trafficked victims are often forced to undergo. 55% of trafficked women report they had at least one abortion. As one trafficked victim states, quote, "That is a deep trauma, not only the abortion experience, but the deep feelings of regret, because this is the life she never intended to live. And now it's taken the life of herself and her child," a second victim, end quote. Being trafficked is a heartbreaking reality that affects an estimated 600,000 to 800,000 women and children every year. Concepts of Truth, Inc. not only informs youth of the dangers and damaging effects of digital use, pornography, and unhealthy sexual behavior, but also lovingly walks through the healing process of sexual trauma and reproductive loss, while teaching the benefits of a healthy sexual life and encouraging people towards peace and contentment. COTI has compassionate and tested educational resources and licensed professional counseling to help survivors, loved ones, or to train counselors to help others. Through sexual education, reproductive loss, and sexual trauma counseling programs, Concepts of Truth International creates the opportunity for women, men, and children to know God's truth about the dignity of life and to make healthy life choices.
Thank you, Ms. Vazquez. And now we will hear from Nkyo Choi, who will explain how youth violence has evolved in South Korea with advancements in digital technology and how that has affected youth's physical, mental, and sexual health. Ms. Choi is a youth representative of the Foundation for Preventing Youth Violence in South Korea. She is majoring in English at Hanyang Foreign Language High School as a sophomore and works as a student counselor. Her broad interest in language, culture, and the global stage motivated her to attend this conference. She desires to participate in more events with the United Nations regarding the balance of the digital world and reality, and hopes to promote ethical developments in developing countries and reduce sexual exploitation of women.
Wait.
Nkyu, there may be a technical problem, or maybe you're muted.
Wait, I'm sharing my screen right now, but it's not getting on the other people's computers.
There you go.
Wait a second. Oh, thank you.
There you go.
Yes, I'll start. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Nkyo Choi, and I'm the representative of South Korea from the Blue Tree Foundation. First of all, I want to thank the United Nations and all the audience here for providing me an opportunity to give speech on such an important subject. I'd like to introduce about how youth violence has differed with the development of digital technology in South Korea. Before the 1990s, the term of youth violence wasn't much of a social problem because the public didn't have an insight on those terms back then. It took quite time for Korea to establish proper education systems after the Korean War, and due to the traumatic effects, violence and poverty were prevalent. After undergoing economic growth and forming stable social foundations, youth violence started being discussed as problematic social topics in the 1990s, especially after a high schooler, Kim Dae-hyun, committed suicide due to school violence in 1995. Our foundation is established by his father. Youth violence used to be the problem of only some boy high schoolers, but it started spreading regardless of gender or age. The major form was physical violence in groups. The Korea press inferred the reason of this to be the emergence of comic books that portray gangster cultures. There were numerous groups in schools that conducted violence with names from the gangs of the comics, and a case that had middle schoolers imitating such scenes of violence from it. These groups, or gangs, started to operate in conspicuous settings and eventually grew to develop various forms of violence. Therefore, a new law to protect youth protection law, was implemented in 1997 so that these places could be strictly monitored. These inappropriate places were mostly comic book stores, video game stores, karaoke, discos, and movie theaters. Now, my group member Minha will discuss about technology development in the 2000s. Wait. No. Wait. I got a notification that the sound can't be placed.
In the 2000s, internet began to be accessed to a majority of the Korean civilians, including youth. In 2000, 49.8% had internet provided at homes, and after only 1 year, the index raised to 63.2%. In 2009, it became the first country in the world to have reached 80%. PC computers were on high boom, creating internet and pop cultures as well as active communication platforms. Many homepages that one could individually create and share with others were on high trend, as well as flash games for children.
Okay, great video. And in reference with this video, youth violence started to differ in format with this. 4th to 6th graders of elementary school responded experiencing school bullying the most, making the age level exposed to violence much lower compared to the 1990s. Physical abuse in groups had actually started to diminish, but a new trend approached. The term shuttle was coined. Shuttle is the name of a spacecraft that carries units of users around in the famous PC game. Now, this gave high influence in Shuttle becoming a victim to do a certain thing for the perpetrator between Korean youth. For example, if one is a backpack shuttle, then it means by one who carries backpacks for the other. And there have been so many types of shuttles in various forms, even lasting nowadays too. So the youth violence trend began to wander from direct physical abuse to more insulting, exploitative ways. And it was even hard to give regulations because on the outside, the perpetrator and the victim looked close. Another change is that filming and sharing was top to the progress. Once a video of students naked under the name of graduation ceremony had been spread on the internet and caused high controversy. In the 2000s, the reason of youth violence was pointed at the implication of media. Youth own this universal and strong need to gain attention, and with the help of internet, it is achievable with provocative contents. The combination of digital communication growth and the psychological elements transitioned inconspicuous violence to an open, on-stage one. Also, the increase in individualism led to more bystanders. Korea owned a long history of social ethos to gather together and help one another as a neighbor. But economic growth and digital development brought modernization and promoted individuality. Bystanders highly increased compared to the 1990s, when there were actually a lot of people helping in reality. There can be two analyses about this. One, the proliferation of internet caused fear over youth that once they provoked the perpetrators, they might get insulted and framed through millions of people forever. The police would not help much there. And second, the youth culture settled on internet created a wall for grown-ups to access to the bullying scenes and reach out for help. The internet did create more opportunities for communication, but most of the platforms are highly divided by age and interest. The segmented space for youth caused obstruction with adults, which is ironic. More communication, more division. Now, lastly, let's take a throwback of the 2010s and 2020. New changes have arrived with this digital decade. The usage of SNS media has been raised 3 times more between 2011 and 2018 as smartphones became a daily tool in our lives. The shift from PC devices at home to a simple mobile device led to the increase of time youth spend on the internet. On 2018, it was shown that Korean teenagers use an average of almost 18 hours of internet per week. Compared to the rate of 14.1 hours on 2013, we can see that the youth are being more accessible to the digital world, and youth violence is festering more. We, the Blue Tree Foundation, have researched that youth violence have recently raised again to 11% after 24 years of a decrease in history from 10% to 3%. Plus, the Korean Ministry of Education's 2020 school bullying research stated other types of bullying, such as physical violence, to have decreased while cyber violence was raised instead. So cyber violence is currently a dominant problem between youth. Verbally insulting one online, perpetual invitation to chat rooms, malicious comment, these are all types of cyber violence that are common right now. And there are also some new looking forms that came out of the surface in the 2010s. First, as such, messenger apps became easier to access and connect to our personal media, anonymous and wide-range users accessing to one another brought cyber sex crimes abundant. On 2020, youth victims of digital sex crimes increased by 39%, and 1/3 of the students claimed experiencing strangers leaving messages online, asking for personal information or body pictures. And even 64% replied following their orders, follow with minutes of exposing to the victim's acquaintances through SNS. About 2 years ago, there was a case in my school that asked of girls receiving sexual messages from an anonymous user, and it turned out to be a boy in the same class. When I heard that, what I first thought was violence is never far from us. And second, self-injury exposing. Youth suffering from mental diseases and extreme stress often commit to hurt oneself, and exposing those injuries on internet started to become a minor culture. Just last year, a 13-year-old girl was reported of running a self-injury account, and there's even a self-injury sharing community on Facebook. Youth sharing their pain in improper ways and regarding this as a tool to express myself is a side effect of what internet communities have first put their objective on, which is sharing and communicating with people of the same interests to enhance empathy and joy. So this is the evolution of youth violence so far. One thing common between all eras is that what the youth accesses to builds their mindsets and communication process. Now, youth digital technologies are inevitable to not dismiss as a powerful tool that every future generation has to access to, and it is our responsibility to recognize the importance of digital dilemma and yearn to build a digital environment that can help youth utilize it for the best. And before I end my speech, I'd like to thank the Commission of Social Development, Concepts of Truth, the Blue Tree Foundation, as well as my group members Minha Kim and Maven who helped me to this speech. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Choi. And now let's hear from Seungmin Lee, who will tell us about new trends in cyberbullying in Asia and their financial and mental harms. Mr. Lee is also a youth representative for the Foundation for Preventing Youth Violence in South Korea. He's a rising junior at Changshim International Academy, where he hopes to study medicine, especially pediatrics. As a teenager and future pediatrician, Mr. Lee wishes well-being to all of his fellow youth.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am Seungmin Lee, a sophomore from South Korea and a representative speaker on behalf of the Blue Tree Foundation. I want to take this opportunity to express my thanks for inviting our organization to participate in this conference. South Korea is one of the most digitally active countries as of now. Therefore, we have seen a huge surge of multiple technological ingenuities, but with it followed unexpected consequences. cyber violence in forms that we have not seen before. Since then, cyber violence in Korea, whether it be types or actual numbers of cases, has increased. I would like to discuss the forms of cyber violence that are seen in Korea and go one step further to discuss the worldwide spread of these forms of cyber violence. First of all, let's discuss shuttling, a concept previously mentioned by Eun-kyo. I'm sure most people here aren't aware of this term as it is used exclusively in Korea, so I will go over the term once again. Victims of shuttling are forced to get certain things or to do something for the bully, whether it be getting food or any other things that might be desired by the bully without compensation. Now, what does this have to do with cyber violence? I want to introduce to you a specific type of shuttling known as data shuttling. In Korea, there are many ways for you to buy and access extra data when you run out of it. Also, there is even a well-maintained system where you can send data to other people. When one becomes a victim of data shuttling, he or she is forced to constantly send data to the bully. There are other ways that data shuttling occurs as well. When a high school bully runs out of all his data, he or she would take his friend's smartphones and force him to provide Wi-Fi. In addition, the bully can also force their friends to change their data plans and provide more data. Students are all aware that this is not right, but they reply that it is very common. This is a quintessential form of cyber violence that resulted from the advancement of technology. Another type of cyber violence that can be seen in only Korea is similar to data shuttling by the fact that they are both forms of shuttling. It is known as digital coupon shuttling. South Korea now has a massive market of digital coupons supported by many popular chatting apps. These digital coupons are also widely used in other countries, but not as much as they are in South Korea. We can directly shop, buy, and present gifts in a single communication app. If I make an analogy, it's like being able to buy an ice cream coupon from WhatsApp and exchange the coupon in a store for the ice cream. Moreover, the platform suggests a wide variety of products. The cost roughly ranges from $10 to $5,000, from cheap and light refreshments to luxurious fashion items. The problem with this growing digital market is that the youth can exploit the unrestricted access in order to extort money from other students. The bullies can force their victims to send them a digital coupon at any time by threatening them to harm them or to humiliate them in public. Because this type of cyber violence can even severely damage a victim's finances, it is greatly urgent that we propose a solution to the inappropriate use of digital coupon markets. There are also cases of cyber violence, cyber crimes that occurred first in Korea and spread to other countries. It is called body camera scam when translated directly. And as the name suggests, it is a scam that involves a body and a camera. Cyber scammers target young men on the internet. Pretending to be women, the scammers encourage victims to send revealing videos or photos of themselves and threats them to spread them unless they pay a certain amount of money. When we consider the time the crime first occurred, it first became an issue in society in 2013 in Korea and 2016 in the United States. However, it may seem like more adults would be affected by these crimes, but according to a survey of high school students in Korea, more than half of them are aware and have felt threatened by these crimes, and about 10% of them have experienced such crimes. There are some cyber violence that occur without a clear distinction between who is the victim and who is the perpetrator. Self-harm accounts involve youth of all age inflicting self-harm to oneself and posting their scars or injuries on various social media platforms. This has turned into a toxic fad in Korea that makes differentiating the actual mentally ill who needs professional help from those who are engaging in it for the attention that it receives. Not only that, the increase in these self-harm accounts in the past years have exposed more unsuspecting youths to the concept of self-harm and suicide, and these act somewhat as a stimulant that can spur on impulsive thoughts in young brains. The prefrontal cortex of the brain is one of the most important parts of the brain that deals with decision-making and emotions, which is also known to be one of the slowest to develop in humans. The prefrontal cortex may be affected by those who are constantly exposed to these self-harm accounts. which may affect one's personality in the future. This is a great example of new, ambiguous types of cyber violence that comes up nowadays that makes it difficult to differentiate who the victim is and who the offender is. Discussing these types of bullying, new questions arose. What if the misuse of technology is exposed to other countries? Will they adopt the same forms of cyber violence seen in Korea as well? We have to assume that the answer is yes, and it's going to happen sooner than you may think. The globalization of digital culture is constantly expanding due to rapidly developing technology and growing accessibility to the internet. Hence, spreading and promoting culture across borders can be frequently seen throughout our modern society. The global exchange is an undoubtedly positive trend that can contribute to the expansion of each country's culture, diversification, and cooperation of the whole world. However, regarding that there exist some cultures that have negative social aspects, such as data and digital coupon shuttling in South Korea, we express a grave concern towards the spread of cyber violence across the youth worldwide. In fact, one large cyberspace where youth from all over the world can have direct communication would definitely serve as a highly effective catalyst of inappropriate culture sharing. For instance, huge digital platforms such as YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, as the most beloved social media worldwide, will encourage youth to experience and learn a broad range of new cultures, even those that are harmful to others. Still, after all the things that have been said, we say that the development of technology is good for the society. This may sound counterintuitive, and yes, even though there have been negative impacts from these new technologies, the positives are just as prevalent, if not more impactful in our society, and we believe that we can use the positive aspects of developing technology to stop the spread of cyber violence and halt the overall rate of cyber violence altogether. A great example is our organization, the Blue Tree Foundation, which has been working to stop violence among youth since 1995 and aims to provide a healthy and safe environment for students. After 2014, when rates of violence among youth started to rise again, despite the effort put in, the organization was able to pinpoint the causality of this increase to one point: a more frequent occurrence of cyberbullying. Ever since, the organization has implemented new ways to stop cyber violence using new technologies. If we aim to use our technology for the betterment of people's lives, our possibility is seemingly endless. We believe that if we work together to seriously make a difference in the world for a better future, for all of us and for our posterity, we can accomplish whatever. As mentioned before, globalization can leave other countries susceptible to these forms of cyberbullying. We sincerely hope that we as in every member of the global society, are able to cooperate with each other to halt this rapid progression of negative technological globalization and ultimately secure a wonderful future where cyber violence is brought down to the bare minimum. I would like to thank Jaehyun Kim, So-ji, and Cheon Song for working so diligently to make this speech possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. And next, I am pleased to introduce Ji-Sang Lee, who will offer possible solutions to address the harmful effects of digital technology and cyber violence. Mr. Ji-Sang Lee is in charge of the Foundation for Preventing Youth Violence, a major NGO in South Korea. He participates in and advocates at numerous international conferences and seminars, including at the United Nations, to raise awareness about the seriousness of violence among youth around the world and to spur policy and multilateral cooperation. Mr. Lee also networks with international businesses to obtain international licenses, grants, and other materials. Mr. Lee majored in media communications in college and has produced more than 100 videos to promote his NGO and to use his skills and insight to investigate and respond to the trends of cyber violence in Korea.
Hello, thank you, Josephine, and everyone here in this event. My name is Ji-Sung Lee, and I'm an international officer of the Blue Tree Foundation. I'd like to talk about the seriousness of cyberbullying among youths in South Korea due to the developed digital technology and the solutions through public-private partnership. Since the late 2000s, the smart era has arrived in the global community, including South Korea. Various electronic devices have been rapidly used by youths in Korea, and many subtypes of bullying have come one after another. According to a nationwide survey, the Korean government had pointed out 99% of 4G coverage and 99.5% of internet access. Over 90% of youths are provided with the smart devices. This generation, so-called digital natives, describes themselves as the digital device has become essential parts of their bodies. Digital advances have also created new risks from cyberbullying to challenging concepts of privacy. Governments, civil society, academia, and the industry must work together to find new solutions. It may no longer be just an issue of one nation, but of the whole global community. Digital advances have created both lights and shadows. In South Korea, the recent annual nationwide survey on school violence done by the Korean Ministry of Education and the Blue Tree Foundation report a big rise in the rate of victims from cyberspace compared with the previous year. Experts consider that bullying has expanded its place from school to the cyberspace and tells it seems to get serious because of its anonymity, rapid spread, no space, time constraints, and weak parental supervision. Recent suicide cases of young celebrities caused by malicious comments and distribution of sexual exploitation materials through certain SNS platforms have been highlighted. It caused social anger asking for special support for victims of digital sex crimes on children and young adults and stricter punishment of the offenders, and concern about other copycat crimes among youths. Schools were considered to take an important role to gather youngsters to socialize, learning how to interact with each other and to grow as good citizens. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced all schools to switch to non-face-to-face online education in South Korea, and Blue Tree Foundation, which has been working on preventing school violence over the past 26 years. Due to this situation, Blue Tree Foundation started a new project called PUCO, the Blue Elephant, which aims to take a leading role in preventing cyber-related violence among youths by creating the public sphere on cyberspace, where governments, civil society, academia, and the industry work together to find new solutions. The project can be presented into 5 steps as below: education, culture, research, healing, and platform building. Prevention is better than cure. Preventive education is essential for youths and their parents who have so big gap in different understanding of digital technologies. They need to talk more over the digital-related topics, including proper digital literacy. Especially for lower grades in elementary school, we should include a curriculum for pro-social behavior in cyber environments. We present 6 virtues which are invented by our chairman, Mr. Moon. They are honesty, promise, forgiveness, responsibility, consideration, and ownership. We also try to understand the seriousness of cyberbullying through team discussions and various hands-on activities to teach them how to deal with it properly and how not to do any harm. Second, culture should be considered when you approach solving cyberbullying. The foundation realized that cyberbullying is often viewed as less serious than physical violence. Cyberspace is more likely considered informal, unrestrained than the real world, and internet users accept indecent expression much easier. Blue Tree Foundation supports youth to join local clubs for campaigns and hosts domestic or international forums to create a precocious environment against cyberbullying and its possible results, allowing the youth to speak up for a chance to suggest policy proposals. Third, research can play an amazing role in the effective solution for cyberbullying, since it can fill gaps in knowledge and can diagnose what is going on and how to improve the problem. Blue Tree Foundation aims to establish empirical evidence to design the most suitable and effective working model for the target. Currently, the foundation has started to work with diverse universities to make an operational definition of cyberbullying in schools in South Korea. And these studies are preparing to be translated into English for an international academic journal. Fourth, when it comes to sudden and unwanted traumatic memories from cyberbullying, finding proper treatment is essential to manage or reduce symptoms. However, there are some witnesses from survivors of cyberbullying that they were not easy to get informed how to get help and what services were able for them, criticizing the stance of the government focusing on juvenile diversion programs for the perpetrators. The foundation has run hotline calls since its beginning in 1995 and provides family-level therapy camps and counseling chats via SNS. Finally, building the public sphere where civil society discusses and participates in solving cyberbullying problems are important. Blue Tree Foundation aims to establish a one-stop platform accessible both on mobile and PC to find effective and sustainable answers to cyberbullying problems. Ultimately, the foundation would like to distribute the solution to other developing countries, including the Philippines, Indonesia, and Vietnam, which import Korea's information communication technology around the world, which might imply a more cooperative stance on solving the issue. Blue Tree Foundation is implementing the mobile platform in order to provide services to the targets, to get easy and effective access to students, parents, teachers, and citizens using digital technology in a good way. Cyberbullying is happening all around the world, and it is speculated to spread further. Therefore, now is the time for the governments, industries, NGOs, academia, and every individual around the world to work together, since this is our mission to create a bullying-free space for the next generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ji-Seng. And now we will turn our attention from social media and cyber violence and hear from Rachel McKenna about digital technology's impact on maternal health care and the effects of telemedicine services. Ms. McKenna is a freshman in high school and has been homeschooled most of her life. She thoroughly enjoys the discussion of politics and would love one day to pursue a degree in political science. Ms. McKenna has competed in speech and debate with the National Christian Forensics Communication Association for 2 years and has qualified for the regional championship in the category of Lincoln Douglas debate. She is very involved at her church and serves in the children's ministry and the audiovisual team. Ms. McKenna is honored and excited for this opportunity to present to the United Nations and eagerly looks forward to the experience.
American writer William S. Burroughs once said, quote, "The purpose of technology is not to confuse the brain, but to serve the body," end quote. In today's society, this statement can be considered both entirely true and painfully false. The purpose of technology has been debated extensively throughout time, and since we live in a world filled with both good and evil, it is challenging to draw a single conclusion about something as multidimensional as digital technology. Today, I'm going to discuss some of the ways digital technology has served to advance maternal health care globally, and then consider some of the negative repercussions of its use, particularly concerning the use of digital technology in the performance of abortions. According to the Council of Foreign Relations, quote, "Every day, 830 women die from complications resulting from pregnancy or childbirth," end quote. The vast majority of these deaths are preventable and occur in regions that lack access to basic resources. 99% of all maternal deaths and high rates of infant mortality take place in developing countries in Africa, South and Southeast Asia, and parts of Latin America because they lack access to basic medical resources. These statistics reflect the harsh reality of living in countries where physical access to healthcare services is limited. Digital technology is confronting these challenges by providing virtual access to medical care through video appointments, online messaging, and on-demand telemedicine meetings with specialists. Maven Clinic is one of many digital telehealth platforms that seeks to meet consumers' growing expectations for digital health solutions. So far, the Maven platform has helped more than 150,000 people in 166 countries get better access to care and allowed pregnant and postpartum women to receive 24/7 medical attention in cases where access to transportation is limited. Digital technology has also enabled mobile ultrasounds, which have played a crucial role in maintaining the health of pregnant women and their babies, particularly in South Nigeria. Because of these devices, it is now possible to quickly obtain high-quality ultrasound images on devices the size of a laptop computer. As ultrasounds become accessible to remote and underfunded clinics, women will now have access not only to better pregnancy care, but also to preventative treatment, timely diagnosis, and improved emergency care. Clearly, digital technology has broadened access to resources for maternal health care, yet while these virtual resources have dramatically improved the health of women and their babies in the United States and around the world, some of these same resources will result in significant harms as telemedicine gives rise to the alarming use of virtual abortions, exposing women and their babies to serious injury. According to the New York Times, quote, over the past year, the program called teleabortion has expanded from serving 5 states to serving 13, adding 2 of those, Illinois and Maryland, as the coronavirus crisis exploded, end quote. The goal of the teleabortion industry is to expand to as many states as possible and offer their services of online terminations of pregnancies. So what is teleabortion? Well, according to teleabortion.org, which is the official site for these procedures, quote, a teleabortion involves all the same steps and procedures as an in-person medical abortion, but you do not have to travel to the clinic. Instead, a provider conducts a video evaluation over the internet. Any tests that may be needed are done at medical facilities closest to your home, and the pills are then sent to you by mail. In short, teleabortion exists to terminate pregnancies using a mostly virtual setting and experience. While for some women, abortion may provide short-term relief from the physical and emotional stress of carrying an unexpected or unwanted child to term, numerous global studies have confirmed the negative short and long-term health impacts of abortion. These harms include post-abortion hemorrhage, infertility, uterine cervical lacerations, retained fetal body parts, breast cancer, autoimmune disease, and numerous psychiatric complications, including severe depression and suicide. Chemical abortion, which is what takes place in teleabortion, carries particularly sobering concerns that women should know about. Chemical abortion usually refers to the medications mifepristone and misoprostol taken in a sequence to terminate the pregnancy of a developing baby within its first 10 weeks. The Guttmacher Institute reports that medication abortion accounted for nearly 40% of all reported abortions in 2017, an increase of 25% since 2014. And during COVID-19, that percentage has no doubt risen as more and more women seek abortions at home and without medical supervision. Concepts of Truth reports that percentage of callers who suffered the effects of chemical abortion has steadily increased. In 2017, 6.54% of its 1,300 callers reported taking abortion pills. In 2019, 8.99% of their 1,478 callers claimed to have taken abortion pills. By October 2020, percentage has increased to 9.11% of 987 callers, and in March 2020, a full 12.72% of callers had used the drug at the peak of the lockdown. What many women and girls who have taken abortion pills may not know is that the medicine can cause severe bleeding, cramping, high blood pressure, overgrowth of the uterine lining, and numerous other symptoms. And many women are also ignorant of the fact that they can reverse their abortion after taking the first pill, mifepristone, but before taking the second, misoprostol. Currently, Heartbeat International reports that in the United States, only 7 states have laws requiring abortion providers provide patients with the information about the possibility of reversing an abortion after taking the first pill. Arkansas, Idaho, Kentucky, Nebraska, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Utah, and Tennessee. But more needs to be done both in the United States and globally. Sadly, many women mistakenly believe that once they have taken the first pill, they must take the second pill, and they lack the information to make informed decisions. I'd like to take a quick minute to share the story of baby Mason, who you now see on the screen. This is a child of a woman who called the Concepts of Truth helpline after taking the first pill, and once she conversed with the organization, decided not to follow through with the abortion. This is not the only situation where this has happened and brought joy and life into the world, and just proves the necessity of properly informed decisions. This summer, U.S. healthcare providers sued the federal government to stop the Food and Drug Administration from enforcing in-person requirements to administer the chemical abortion pill during the COVID-19 pandemic. After several appeals, the United States Supreme Court sided with the government and held that the FDA could continue to require in-person visits for abortion, and the court should refer to the FDA's expertise in this area. Member states should Similarly, recognize the risks involved with abortion generally and chemical abortion particularly, and resist political pressure to fund abortions, particularly virtual abortions, given its significant harm. Although public denial about the mental and physical consequences of abortion continues, and organizations stubbornly assert that no evidence exists to support post-abortion trauma, there is a mounting body of scientific literature refuting this position and documenting the wide-ranging mental health issues stemming from abortion. Sources that I have referred to in this talk are now shown on the screen. In addition, Concepts of Truth nonprofit organization and international helpline has received approximately 20,000 calls since 2003 from every state in the United States and other parts of the world. Every day, the staff hears the voices of women and girls who are descending into mental illness, including depression, self-harm, and sometimes suicide because of the consequences of abortion. Concepts of Truth, an ECOSOC accredited NGO, provides sexual health education, resources, and counseling for reproductive loss and sexual trauma to educate and care for women and girls of all faiths who seek to know the truth about life. We cannot claim we are striving to empower women when we refuse to recognize their grief. Concepts of Truth thus supports the 4 pillars of the Geneva Consensus, promoting better health for women, the preservation of human life, the strengthening of family as the foundational unit of society, and protecting every nation's national sovereignty in global politics. Thank you so much for this opportunity and for giving me your time.
Thank you, Ms. McKenna. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our last panelist, Rebecca Tabbitt, who will explore digital technology's impact on education and the need for greater sexual and mental health education resources. Ms. Tabbitt is a freshman in high school and has been homeschooled most of her life. She also competes in the National Christian Forensics Communication Association's Speech and Debate Club and takes pride in writing and performing. She loves music, including singing and playing the flute, and achieves highly in her musical goals. Ms. Tabbitt is intrigued by the topics of politics, especially international relations and philosophy. She enjoys discussions about these topics and learning more, and believes it is crucial to have an open mind, to never cease learning, because you can never truly achieve all there is to know. Ms. Tabbitt is thrilled and honored by this opportunity to speak at the UN and can't wait to see what she will do with the experience.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Tyne. Louis Pasteur once said, quote, "Science knows no country because knowledge belongs to humanity and is the torch which illuminates the world." Digital technology is such a science, allowing us to share illuminating information with all of humanity unhindered by geographic boundaries. Today, we will consider how digital technology enlightens women and families, particularly in developing countries, providing broad access to educational materials that enhance sexual and mental health and decrease women and girls' vulnerability to illness, poverty, and sexual exploitation. As we explore these benefits, we will also explore ways to improve digital education's impact on sexual and mental health. According to UNESCO, education is a basic human right and is the single most powerful way to lift women out of poverty by giving them an opportunity to enter the labor force in places where that has been socially less acceptable. But despite ambitious efforts, 750 million adults, 2/3 of whom are women, still lack the basic reading and writing skills necessary for instruction. In Yemen, for example, 80% of females will never have an opportunity to go to school. Such lack of education is a significant problem and has been generally linked to risky behaviors, inadequate healthcare, poor nutrition, and poor housing and working conditions. And women who lack an adequate education are at an increased risk for sexual exploitation, prostitution, sex trafficking, and the drug trade. How can digital technology help solve these disparities in education and improve the status of women? First, digital technology can provide educational resources to large groups of people for relatively low cost. This is possible because of the broad access to the internet. In fact, 64% of people in 19 emerging and developing economies said they accessed the internet at least occasionally or owned a smartphone in 2017. As a result, organizations such as UNESCO, together with the Microsoft Corporation, offer educational programs on mobile devices to women in Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and Central America to boost literacy, improve health, and develop skills to broaden their participation in society. Digital apps like 1 Billion strive to get educational software into the hands of children in remote villages and refugee camps. While in India, MindSpark, a self-paced, computer-based adaptive learning program, resulted in a 38% increase in math performance in only 5 months, and the cost per school was $2. Digital technology also helps teach youth about their sexual and mental health. Educating young women digitally about sexuality and disease has substantially reduced the risk of HIV infection, which is the leading cause of death for women and girls of reproductive age worldwide. Online organizations such as FEM Health teach girls about reproductive health and sexuality, offering various apps, online classes, and support groups. FEM also provides classes for medical providers to diagnose and treat infertility and other female dysfunction. And it also offers telemed consultations for patients to discuss a range of conditions in reproductive care. Meanwhile, online platforms like Callisto in California educate and assist sexual assault victims to know their options and report attackers. Online blogs and search engines have a wealth of information to diagnose, treat, and prevent virtually every ailment using alternative or traditional medicine. Although digital technology has broadened access to education globally, progress remains, specifically in the area of sexual health education. As the United Nations Secretary General's Envoy on Youth concluded, the evidence is clear. Sexuality education leads to better health. Sexual education reduces HIV and AIDS and unintended pregnancies. Quote, it not only promotes gender equality and equitable social norms, but has a positive impact on safer sexual behaviors and delaying sexual debut, end quote. But despite countries' desire to expand this education, quote, there remains a significant gap, end quote, between the many policies in place, and the execution of them. In the US, the Guttmacher Institute found that fewer states were receiving formal sexual health education than in the past, even though according to the CDC, nearly 40% of all high school students in the US report they had sex, and the United States has the highest teen birth rate in the industrialized world. Not surprisingly, the states with the highest rates of teen mothers aged 15 to 19 were states where education about sexual health was not a part of the school curriculum. Concepts of Truth, Inc. addresses the complex issues of sexual and reproductive health in its junior high and high school curriculum, Concepts of Sexual Health, Sex, and You. The curriculum, which is based on the whole person approach, teaches that one's sexuality is integrated in all dimensions of one's humanity, and that sexual health depends on making healthy choices in relationships, including the choice to save sex for marriage, and living out one's sexuality in true freedom with integrity, purity, and unconditional love. During the COVID pandemic, Concepts of Truth staff transitioned from in-person teaching and accommodated public schools to the digital platform. The curriculum is now on Amazon and Vimeo to close the digital gap, often offering discount scholarships. This curriculum provides women and girls with information to make informed choices about their bodies, including information about the consequences of terminating a pregnancy. Of course, not all terminations of pregnancies are chosen. Many women and girls quietly and anonymously grieve the unintended loss of their unborn babies. As Huffington Post observes that in the US, quote, miscarriage is so common. You would think we would be adept at talking about it and supporting one another during the dark days that follow. Approximately 10 to 25% of clinically recognized pregnancies result in loss, and yet our society struggles with sufficiently acknowledging the acceptable grieving process, as women wade through their grief without a cultural compass. End quote. As with sexual health, there needs to be a more widespread education and awareness about the realities of miscarriage. This silent suffering may even be more pronounced in Africa and Asia. An African counseling group called Still a Mom says the silence surrounding pregnancy and infant loss remains largely taboo due to, quote, cultural beliefs and practices that sometimes get in the way of healing, end quote. Society is still silent despite an estimated 4.2 million miscarriages each year in countries like Nairobi, where the stillbirth rate is 10 times higher than that in developing countries. In South Africa, miscarriage rates can approach 50% of all pregnancies, and in South Asia, women who have miscarried are marginalized. Quote, where are the narratives of the women who both suffer and survive? Where are the perspectives and advocacy of psychologists who help with other losses in life, end quote, asks Dr. Alicia Del Prado. Lack of open discussion about miscarriage is another way many women can be unfairly alone, muted, burdened, and stigmatized with an experience that is not their fault, similar to experiences of abuse and sexual assault. Member states, as part of their efforts to expand digital sexual health education, should strive to make these realities known to help women and men manage their grief. Concepts of Truth, Inc. NGO helps women and men find relief from sexual trauma, particularly the possible trauma following abortion or miscarriage, and is committed to educating each person with knowledge that will enrich their sexual and mental health. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Tavitt, and all the youth panelists for your interesting presentations. I'm now honored to introduce Millie Lace, the founder and director of Concepts of Truth, Inc., who will give us some closing remarks. Ms. Lace has been with Concepts of Truth since 2001 and co-authored Concepts of Recovery, the Journey, an abortion recovery curriculum, and Concepts of Sexual Health, Sex and You, a sexual health curriculum for the public schools. Mrs. Lace has presented at the United Nations in various conferences since 2005 and served as president of the Arkansas Mental Health Counselors Association. Her abortion story has been featured on television, radio, in various books, and in documentaries.
Thank you, Josephine. Thank you, Jisang, the Blue Tree Foundation, and all of our youth panelists today. You all have shown not only your interest and concern with the benefits and the dangers of digital technology as they relate to education, maternal health care, cyber violence, and social media, but you have also shown your passion to protect and advance the health and dignity of youth and families. As an accredited ECOSOC NGOs, the Blue Tree Foundation, the Foundation for Preventing Youth Violence, NGO, and Concepts of Truth Incorporated, NGO, make the following recommendations. The Blue Tree Foundation calls on governments, private enterprise, schools, and the local communities to combat cyber violence in all of its forms, including cyber verbal violence, defamation, stalking, sexual violence, bullying, and information leakage. Concepts of Truth, Inc. NGO recommends that in keeping with the goals of the Geneva Consensus Declaration, we must ensure that the benefits of digital technology promote the 4 pillars supported by at least 34 member states. As you heard in Rachel's presentation, better health for women, the preservation of human life, the strengthening of family as the foundational unit of society, and the protecting every nation's national sovereignty in global politics. We recommend that member states join in keeping with the Declaration's goals to ensure that digital technology promotes social development and the well-being of all. At this time, I don't know if you've had a chance to put a question in the chat box, but if you have a question or two, we can possibly have time to answer those. And I will check the chat box in just a second. But I just want to say, as a thank you for your participation today, Concepts of Truth will provide a scholarship code to purchase a rental of our sexual health curriculum on Vimeo, and that's available for junior and high school students. And if you're interested, just email us at info@conceptsoftruth.org. And also you can like us on our Facebook page. And you can find more information on each of our organization's websites that are listed here on our last slide. And let me we'll check the chat box and see if you have any questions. And we also have an evaluation that we want to present and ask you for your feedback on a couple of questions. So hold on just a second. Let's see. So far, we don't have any questions. So you all must have really learned a lot today. I hope that you did. So if we don't have any questions, oh, we have one. How many years have these foundations been doing work? It's a great question. I'll let Jisang from South Korea. Let me see. Jisang, you can answer first.
Oh, yes. Thank you for the question. Our foundation have been working for 26 years, yeah, since 1995.
And our organization, Concepts of Truth, we're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. So 20 years, 20 and 26. That's a great record. Thank you for that question. Okay, I will go ahead and put up our evaluation here, if you will. Take just a minute, and we would like to record the results here. The first question is, the information presented today was adequate to make me more aware of the dilemmas of digital technology and the impact on personal well-being. If you agree with that, or if you strongly agree, neither, disagree, or strongly disagree. I'd like for you to answer those. And the information presented challenged me to be more active in promoting sustainability and mental and sexual health. And then we'd also like for you to select the continent that you represent. We couldn't list all the 193 countries or so, but if you could please, let's see. We have about 50% voting. Just go ahead and we'll wait just a second. And then we would like to publish the results. We have 65% that have voted. We will keep waiting till we see if we get about 100% here. About 80%. Thank you all so much. It's anonymous, so you can just share your thoughts here. Okay, we have about 80% that voted. And we won't pressure you. So I'll go ahead and I'll wait about 10 more seconds. And if no one else wants to submit your answers here, we'll go ahead and publish the results. Okay, I think we've got 80% that vote that. And here's the results. Thank you for those. And I think this is interesting. We have 3% of our viewers today, participants, are from Africa, 33% from Asia, 3% from Europe, and 62% from North America. I think we need to give everyone a hand wherever you are here. Okay.
Mrs. Lace, there's a question in the chat box.
Oh, thank you. We have just a couple more minutes. Okay. That one. Okay. Okay. This question is for Mr. Lee Jinseng. It says, I'm curious how it was possible to track the offenders and the victims of the cyber violence in such a vague and vast cyberspace. So Jinseng, we have approximately a minute or so left here. If you can answer that question. I don't know if I'll read it again. They want to know how you track the offenders and the victims of a cyber violence in such a vague and vast cyberspace.
Okay, thank you for the question. The reason I called the Blue Elephant application a one-stop platform is because it can not only provide preventive education and contents, but can collect and seek for all the witnesses and reports of cyberbullying. The users of the app are encouraged to report their cases, and they are likely to get appropriate feedbacks, solutions, and or rewards. So I guess the victims might be encouraged using our one-stop platform. Yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you. And thank you everyone for attending. I think it's just been a great day, and we're all learning a lot, and we just are so thankful for technology and how we could all connect today. So please share this if you can once we get the recording out. And hopefully we'll see you again another year. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you very much, and bye.
Bye.